Hi guys, welcome back. And this time around, I'm bringing you a multiple DD review or comparison of IEMs which are above the $100 price bracket. There might be a few that I've missed here. There might even be a few that I have purposely not added on in this review. But there are two of them are older IEMs which I have previously reviewed, and two are more recent releases, namely the binary audio Dynaquattro and the 7 Hz 5. So the focus will be on these two, and I've basically brought out two other IEMs which are both from PENON. One is the PENON Serial, one is the PENON Quattro. I had a couple of others that I had planned to, but I decided at the end, look, I'm not going to complicate things, and ultimately this is not to ascertain who comes out on top, who wins or loses, but rather to present these two IEMs against these existing ones, and one of them, especially the Serial, has been one of my long-time favorites. Actually, I get asked a lot of the times, Tony Acros, make a tier list. Tony Acros, which are your favorite IEMs in this price bracket? Which are your favorite IEMs in that price bracket? And I will get to that. I apologize for not having done so, but the Serial is definitely one of my favorite IEMs of all of the dozens and dozens and dozens of IEMs I have and have heard of. Have heard, not heard of, heard. Why, you ask me? Well, because I just absolutely fell in love with its old school kind of tonality. I really enjoy the PENON house sound, and the Serial is a perfect embodiment of all those characteristics which I personally, look for in an IEM. Timbre and tonality are spot on, and it's just got that, really nice, agreeable sound and musicality, which I very much like. I don't want to do analogies here with old cars, because many of you might not even know, but each one of these IEMs here remind me of cars of when I was a youngster, of older cars which had soul, cars which had they had some magic about them, something which has been lost in our days. The majority of things now have just become basically McDonald's. It's copy paste out the door, and they have no charisma, no personality, no nothing. And when I mention cars, these IEMs here, they remind me. I know it might sound like a completely nonsensical comparison, but they remind me of certain cars. Anyway, jumping straight into it. Um, in terms of price, they kind of are more or less priced within a certain equal value, although of course the 7 Hz is the one that is definitely the cheapest. So the 7 Hz 5. Oh my God, what is wrong with you? This is priced at $150. The binary audio Dynaquattro is priced at $260, $259 if I'm mistaken, and then the Serial, the PENON Serial, at $299, and the Quattro at $399. All of them are multiple DD IEMs, as I mentioned. The Quattro has got 4 drivers, two 10 mm drivers in a quasi isobaric or in a bass pump configuration, if you guys know what that is. An 8 mm for the mids and a 6 for the highs. The Serial has got 3 dynamic drivers, a 10, a 8, and a 6. The Dynaquattro has got a very interesting configuration. It's got a 10, a 8, a 6.8, and a 6. The 10 is endowed with the bass, with handling the bass. The 8 with the mids. The 6.8 is kind of a flat planed dynamic driver handling the highs and the super highs, let's put it that way. And then the 6mm is coupled with the 10mm in a passive configuration to not only help with controlling that 10mm driver, but further enhancing the bass output. So it's kind of like if you guys are obviously aware of, you've got some home theater subwoofers which the box seems to be sealed, but then there's a passive radiator which is facing usually down or to the rear, so the opposite side of the main driver, the active one, and that passive radiator basically is there to control what would be the output of the rear wave of the driver in a if you would have, let's say, a basic helmets resonator, so a basic bass reflex enclosure. That passive radiator is substituting that bass reflex port and conferring a little bit more control to the driver, so it doesn't unload as easily and augments the bass performance by cleaning it up and so on and so forth. But anyway, not wanting to complicate things, so this has got that interesting configuration there in terms of the bass driver and that 6mm passive radiator. And then the 7Hz 5, as the name implies, it's got 5 6mm drivers, again divided in drivers which are focused on the bass, focused on the mids, and then focused on the highs. How can I well, let's start here with the 7Hz with the 5. As is the case with 7Hz, they always try and give us a decent accessories package, and the 5 is no exception. It comes with decent enough tips. They've got these tips which I'm using here, which are kind of emulating the tips from KB ear, the 07s. They've got this nice cable. I have to admit that I like the cable. The only thing that I would have liked to have been a little bit better is just the terminations. Yeah, just the actual accessories on both ends. If they were a little bit nicer, I think it would actually make or give justice to the cable even more so. The cable performs very nicely, so I didn't even bother with changing it out. I left it. As for the IEM itself, it's got a metal faceplate with then a resin shell. If you look, let me see if I could focus. This would be nice, but not gonna. It doesn't seem like I'm going to be able to do it. Oh, there we go. So if you actually look carefully, you can kind of it's not easy, I apologize, because well, it is what it is. You can kind of see the drivers inside there. 4 of them are easily seen, and the 5th one is actually behind the nozzle. But overall, it's actually quite interesting to see that although there's 5 drivers, they've made an IEM which is quite small, fits beautifully in my ears. I've got absolutely nothing to complain about in that aspect. Light, it looks. It looks fine. There's nothing that I can complain with regards to, like I said, the actual build of the IEM. The only thing that I would have liked, and I think in this case it deserves it, it would have been nice if it just had slightly better accessories. So accessories wise, fit wise, the 5 ticks all the right boxes. There's really nothing that I can say negative. I like the case, even though it's a soft case. I like the feel of this case. I would very much like to see this case offered more often on I think the only real improvement that could be done here would be to have this sort of finish, but with a slightly more sturdier feel, just because you put IEM in here, and if it gets maybe trampled by something, it can maybe perhaps still damage the IEM. So if it was a bit of a harder case, I think it would offer a little bit more protection. But overall, I just like it. It's an interesting departure from what we usually see. So well done there. As for the Dynaquattro, again, really not much that I can say negative in terms of the shell. It's a beautifully printed shell. You can kind of again see what's inside. I apologize. You can kind of see what's inside there. All right, it's a 3-way network, a crossover network with a 3-way tube setup as well. metal faceplate. I like this kind of design there of what would be perhaps the drivers. You could consider the drivers or whatever. Nice cable, which is modular. Okay, it does have a little bit of a life of it, to its own. Does tangle a little bit, but the actual measurements that I did with the cable are fine. It's perfect. The accessories are nice. I would have liked just a little bit nicer accessories on this end. This plastic termination, yeah, doesn't do it justice when you consider how nice the actual cable cinch here and the actual plug itself is. But anyway, it is what it is. Once again, quite commendable the fact that they were able to put these drivers in a shell which is very, very ergonomic. It fits me beautifully, had no issues. I'm also using the stock tips, by the way. They worked perfectly, so no need to me to go and fetch the tips that I usually resort to, the PENON liqueurs or the green ones that they also sometimes bring, or then the Venus Velvet or the KB ears. Those are my usual go-to tips. Also the H570, I also like that tip, especially with all BA IEMs. Don't ask me why, but they just seem to work well. Anyway, as for the Dynaquattro, again, beautifully done shell. Nothing to be said with regards to its physical attributes. That they are on point, and again, with regards to the accessories, binary audio didn't disappoint. They've got this binary audio, no, my apologies, binary acoustics. They've got this kind of pelican hard case, so this is going to offer plenty of protection here, no doubt about that. So they've again ticked all the right boxes when it comes to build, accessories, and all of that. And that's basically it. I mean, I think with regards to the physical aspect of things, I've basically covered it. So let's talk about the sound, which is what I'm sure you guys are wanting to know what I think. There is how can I put this? They all have their own very distinct style. That's noticeable, especially when you go from the Quattro to these two and then to the 5. You notice that different let's say flavor of sound. Of the 4 of them, the Quattro will be the one that has the thickest bass, and it has its pluses and its minuses. Its biggest minus is that it has a tendency of sometimes drowning out slightly the mids and making the female vocal sound a little bit closed and stealing a little bit of detail from the overall music. So the detail retrieval, although adequate, and there's really nothing I could point as, oh, it's a major flaw. It is, in my opinion, a detail retrieval which is inferior to what you get on the Serial and on the Dynaquattro for sure. But like I said, it's got its own style, and that's why I want to reiterate what I said earlier. This is not so much this one is better than that or that is better than this. No, they all are very different, and if there are 2 here which are the most similar, it's the Serial and the Dynaquattro. But they all are very different. Okay, they all have their own peculiarities and are tailored to a specific person that wants a specific type of sound. So this is the one that will be the most, as I said, the one that will have the thickest bass, with its negative of having that thickest bass being then that it drowns out the mid slightly, and it steals away from details. The 5 is the one that's the most V-shaped, so you definitely notice a very well executed bass, especially when you consider it's 6mm drivers, and a very nicely executed upper mids and treble. Nothing wrong there. The problem is the mids get left behind, and they get left behind in a way which again is not offensive. It didn't offend me, that I didn't, oh, but it would have been nice maybe if somehow they could have maybe added a switch on the bass drivers to take a little bit of the bass energy if it was needed. and then let those mids just open up a little bit more. But again, I mean, it's not offensive. It's the way that they've done it on purpose. They tuned it that way, and it plays well. It does what it was supposed to, or what was the intended way of tuning it. It does it well. So I can't really, put it down or because of that. And then we've got the Dynaquattro, which, as I just mentioned a couple of minutes ago, is the one that has the most similar sound here to the serial. And what do I mean by that? Everything from bass to mids to treble is in the right amount and in a very balanced manner. So you don't feel that any part of the spectrum is overpowering the other. I would say that the upper mids and treble on the Quattro, or the Dynaquattro, are a little bit more energetic and detailed. Well, not energetic, a little bit more detailed than the serial. But it's very much song dependent, and I would say your library would ultimately dictate if that is the case for you as well. Otherwise, in terms of the bass, again, very similar with them trading blows. There are instances where the bass in the serial is more appealing. There are others where the bass on the Dynaquattro is the one that's the most appealing to me. I will, however, say with that it does seem that the bass driver here, and obviously I think that comes down to the fact that they're using that passive radiator, which is helping. It does seem that the bass here on the Dynaquattro is just that little extra cleaner more times than on the serial. The bass hits sound just a little bit more pristine, a little bit more clean. It's something that, once again, I repeat, will be library dependent, will be dependent on your ears, will be dependent on what you're using. And touching on not that aspect of what I'm using, I used the DTC 800 from Duno to try these IEMs, along with, of course, my Yuki and my Cayenne RU7. So I think the source and how your ears accept the IEM will very much allow you to pick up on what I just said about the bass here on the Dynaquattro. In terms of the mids, again, we have the same situation, a very similar vibe. They are very equal, they're trading blows. Ultimately, perhaps the mids on the Dynaquattro might be more appealing to more people than on the serial. And this is a difficult one, yeah, for me to explain, because it's very much dependent on my library. Like I said, I like listening to jazz, I like listening to EDM. I've got a pretty varied library, and if you go through my playlist, which I'll publish alongside this review, you will understand. So for example, if I'm listening to something like, for example, Raising Venus from Malia, I prefer it on the Dynaquattro. However, if I'm listening to Memory of You from Christopher Ghost, it's trading blows. Yeah. If I'm listening to Timbo Vu, again, very much trading blows. If I'm listening to Stand By Me by Dominic Fils-Aimé, then I would say that the serial is the one that comes out on top. So these two, honestly, they kind of really trading blows very often. Ultimately, if you ask me, okay, but Tony, I'm undecided between these two, which do you think will probably be the better one? Look, this is really tough for me to say this, but I would think that the Dynaquattro will be the one that's the more appealing to more people, marginally so, but I think the Dynaquattro, and I say this because it might be able to give that little extra amount of detail that people which have maybe still their hearing abilities to their fullest will be able to appreciate. I've got my age, I've got my limitations. I don't have my hearing like it used to be. Pretty much comes around to 15k, 15 and a half k, and that's game over for me. So and even then I can sense that this has got a little bit more energy, although graphically you wouldn't think that way. So I think the Dynaquattro will ultimately be the one that will be a little bit more appealing for those that still have their hearing to their fullest abilities. But you can't really go wrong between the two of them. That's the reality. I mean, this is $299, this is $260. The $40 difference there is, it is what it is. As for the Quattro, like I said, the Quattro I think will favor a crowd of people that will perhaps appreciate more, or will be more appreciative of rock music, so they like their mid bass nice and strong. I think the Quattro will be the one that will satisfy that crowd the most. If you like listening to female vocals and jazz and so on and so forth, the Serial and the Dynaquattro do a better job of that. So I would steer away from the Quattro and go maybe this route. On top of that, we also have the fact that this is $399, so it's $100 more than this, $140 more than that, and that kind of money. Look, to put things in a different manner, for what the Quattro costs with all its merits, you can pick up a Dynaquattro and you can pick up a 7Hz 5. Okay. Going back yet again here to the 5. Like I said, the sound is more V-shaped. It's a sound which gives you a good well, not a good is an understatement, but gives you a really good bass performance. I briefly compared it to the Legato, for example. That's just two dynamic drivers, and I would dare say that the bass here doesn't stay in any way behind the bass of the Legato, although that's using a bigger dynamic driver, so more cubic inches, let's put it that way. Where this, in my opinion, actually surpasses the Legato. And like I said, I was going to put the Legato here, but then I decided no point. It's basically $100, so it's too close to the $100 bracket for me to put it. I just thought no, but I will, like, as I'm doing, touch up on a brief comparison between the Legato and the 5. The 5, by having better mids, although recessed, and by having a definitely better execution of the upper mids and treble, just sounds more coherent and more balanced out. The Legato does have great bass, but ultimately I think they maybe 7Hz maybe overdid the desire to have it sound too old school, and by wanting to make it sound too old school, they perhaps neglected to give the necessary energy to that dynamic driver handling the bass, so that it could keep up with things. So I don't know. I get the feeling that the Legato, although an interesting IEM, and I did think that it was valid enough, although there were other IEMs when I reviewed it that I thought made more sense. The Legato uses a big dynamic driver for the bass, but you don't really fully get what that dynamic driver is capable of doing on the one hand. On the other hand, the driver handling the mids and the highs is perhaps a little bit shy, so the coherence of the two drivers wasn't, in my opinion, the most well matched, and it kind of made for a very genre specific performance, and very limited in terms of how wide of a crowd it could satisfy, while the 5 is the complete opposite. I mean, not wanting to jump the gun here, but for me the 5, I haven't heard the Aurora, but the 5 for me is the best 7Hz IEM I've heard to date. It's the best one, with all the merits that the other IEMs that they have deserve. The 5 ticks all the right boxes, and does it for me, in my opinion, everything almost perfect. So no, it's just the best one for me. Comparing the 5 to the Dynaquattro, I think I've already said enough for you guys to have picked up on what is going to be here the decision, or well, not the decision, but the verdict. This is the more balanced, the more coherent sounding IEM. That one there is very fun. So if you like listening to EDM, electronic music, your occasional rock as well, and so on, that will be the better option. If you like more acoustic, more classical, more jazz, this will be able to perform it at a higher level or at a higher standard than what the 5 will do. So it's kind of, again, like as I've mentioned already before, each one of these IEMs has a specific crowd that they are wanting to capture, and they would be a good complement to each other. Let's put it that way. Okay, they would be a good complement to each other. In terms of just the technical aspects, just briefly, like I said, the serial and the Dynaquattro, they are not the ultimate twinklies and sparklies IEMs. No, they are not. But the detailed retrieval that they have is very competent and very much in line with what the IEM's performance of either one of them is. When comparing the two of them, which one do I think is the better technically? I would say the Dynaquattro is slightly ahead of the serial. It's got a slightly larger soundstage, a little bit more precise imaging, a little bit more detailed retrieval. The serial maybe edges out the Dynaquattro, maybe edges it out in terms of timbre and tonality, but honestly, the one that's the more competent technically will be the Dynaquattro. Although it's not a bloodbath, it's very marginal. And once again, let me repeat and make sure that you guys understand, it's based on my hearing abilities, on how it fits my ears, on what I use as a source, and on my library. So if you guys go through my library and you appreciate the songs that I listen to, then you will have an idea if this is the one that you will be preferring. As for the 7 hertz, I, I would have liked a slightly larger soundstage, although it's not a deal breaker. The imaging, again, not a deal breaker. The detailed retrieval, the micro details and so on, are quite interesting. They're pretty decent, actually. I would say they are on par, for example, with the Quattro. I think, actually, technically, I would say this is first, this is a very close second, this is third, and this is fourth. Let's put it that way. So timbre and tonality, I think, is not the ideal, only because you notice that recess of the mids. So you need a little bit more zing with regards to certain instruments like wind instruments and guitars and so on and so forth. And this, because of the fact that that's part of the spectrum, has been a little bit recessed, lags behind. But look, I said this now in a review recently. I don't want to get caught up here on too much on the aspect of technical details and this and that and blah blah blah. I think what is important is you put the IEM in your ear. If it sounds good to you and it makes you smile and makes your feet tap, then that's all that is needed. This is about enjoying the music, okay, and not about having the biggest collection of IEMs and going after the little extra more little detail that it has at 5 kilohertz, or the little bit less aggressiveness that it has at 8K, or the little bit more bass slam that it has. Because then ultimately what is happening is you're not enjoying the music, but you're looking after things to nitpick and to justify why you're spending money and why you are wanting this IEM now and that IEM next week and another, then the following week another IEM. That's that's the reality. If there's one thing that I've learned in these years now of being a reviewer and having gone down the rabbit hole of this hobby the way I've gone, is yes, you do see definite improvements. The segment of the market now below $100 is absolutely unreal. The performance that you get of IEMs. The segment of under $200, the same situation. The segment of under $500, the same situation. But ultimately, is there a justification to wanting to buy all the IEMs available? No, not really. Because look, if you're going to enjoy an IEM under normal circumstances, that means that you're going to probably be walking outside in the park or in the mountain, or or whatever, on the beach, which is not ideal listening conditions. There's going to be noise, there's going to be this, there's going to be that, and you're not going to notice the dramatic difference between an IEM which is well executed and well done, it costs $100, and an IEM that costs $1,000. You're not going to pick up on it. Let's be honest here, and stop wanting to just convince ourselves that yes, oh, I will notice. You won't. You notice the differences when you are doing what I'm doing, which is sitting in a quiet room and listening to music, and there's nothing really bugging you. You don't have a train going by, or a bus or a motorbike, or then yes, you might be able to pick. And even then, you're going to be very hard pressed, very hard pressed. There's the number of IEMs in the last year that have come out at let's say relatively accessible values, which have surprised me, is so high that it makes me say that the law of diminishing returns is a bitch, excuse my language, because it's very hard to justify spending above a certain value, and obviously that value is going to be a little bit dependent. But if you ask me, what value do you think that is, Tony? Well, for the majority of people, for the majority of us, I think that value is about $200. Spending above $200 on an IEM is a little bit complicated. It's got to be something really special. Between the $200 and the $500 bracket, you find things which make very solid arguments for themselves, undoubtedly. I mean, the Dynaquattro, the Serial, are two examples of that, and many other IEMs that I've reviewed. But then once you go past that $500-600 bracket, it becomes very much again, excuse what I'm going to about to say, but it becomes very much a dick measuring contest, because the differences are not as much as you would expect, and even I myself sometimes fall, in that trap of no, this makes sense because because of this feature or because of that feature. And when I actually have to get over the honeymoon period and sit down and relax and think to myself with a little bit more rationale, there isn't really nothing that justifies you spending crazy amounts of money, because then a number of other things also have to be, let's say, on the same level for you to really be able to get the best. Anyway, I'm ranting here. Before I show you the graphs, I just want to leave you with one last thing, which is in terms of ease of drive and of being, the PENON stuff has always been very easy to drive. You don't really need that much power, although it is always welcomed. The 5 is actually quite easy to drive as well, nothing of an issue there. But the Dynaquattro, I have to say, is a dog. It needs a lot of power. I mean, I easily can max out my NX7 easily. And with my FIO, which I also then used to kind of see what was the story, I didn't take it to its maximum, but I went way above what usually is the volume level that I use. I usually leave my FIO Q15 in on the volume there of around 55 to 60, and I took it all the way up to 85. So the specs that they've given here in terms of impedance and sensitivity for the Dynaquattro, I think are not representative of how much power it actually requires to get the best out of it. And that's it, guys. I'll show you now the graphs and we'll wrap it up. Welcome back, and we have some graphs now for you guys. So let me just take away some of these graphs so that we can start seeing things a little bit better. Okay, this first graph that I'm showing you is the graph of the 7 Hertz 5, and it kind of, there's two things here that I think are worth mentioning and that should be taken away from it. First of all, Yes, it is definitely a V-shaped IEM. You notice it. This part of the mids is definitely recessed when compared to the bass and to the mids, upper mids and treble. My apologies. However, you must keep in mind that first of all, this bass is coming from 6mm drivers, so it's not as excessive as you might think. If anything, it sounds way more balanced than what the graph would make you believe. And then this peak here that we find at just over 6K, again, is not as, at least I don't pick it up as much as you would think, because this bass that is from behind, which is prominent, yes, does help control it. So although when you look at things in a more traditional manner, we see here that we have a bass gain of roughly 16 dBs and a mid gain, a PENON gain, which is around 14 dBs. It doesn't sound as aggressive as something like that would make you would make you think. The sound is really good. It's got a very nicely executed bass. The bleed that exists into the mids is no way as significant or as you would think by looking at this graph, because it's 6mm drivers. It's a difficult thing to explain. And then yes, we do have a prominent PENON gain, but again, the balance that was struck from behind kind of makes things sound way more tamer. What of course you do notice is that this part of the spectrum is recessed. And then as for the rest, good sound stage, which basically you can kind of get a perception of that by looking at this part of the graph here. It's fine. It is honestly fine. It sounds way better than what the graph would lead you to believe. Okay, I'm going to show you the Dynaquattro, and then we'll compare with the other two. This is the graph of the Dynaquattro, and this is a graph which kind of appeals to me, and I think will appeal to many people. Nice gliding bass, sub bass focus. It's basically flat by 200, so by 200 hertz, so no bleeding to the mids. A nice progressive PENON gain, peaking at just over 3K, and then it drops off. So no aggressiveness, no harshness, no nothing. It's the kind of graph that if you get this, if you see this graph, but on a hybrid IEM with BAs, the hybrid IEM will definitely sound completely different. Will definitely sound more detailed, with more life to the sound. But because we're talking about DDs here, the sound that you get from the Dynaquattro is just an absolute pleasure. It's a very old school kind of sound, which is very pleasurable. I just love it, honestly. I just think it's phenomenal sounding IEM. I really do. And not wanting to jump the gun, it definitely, well, not jump the gun because we already are at the end of the review, but anyway, it's an IEM which definitely joins the serial as one of my favorite IEMs that I own, without a margin for a doubt. Definitely. Let's now then show us the other IEMs here quickly. 1 second. Okay, so let's carry on here now. Comparing the Quattro with the serial, first of all, you can definitely see why I mentioned that there's a lot of similarities. The bass of the serial does, on graph at least, appear to have a little bit more mid-bass presence, but when you effectively hear it, it's a case of yes and no. The bass of the Dynaquattro is just that little extra cleaner, but on occasions the bass of the serial has got just that edge, that slight little edge, by giving it just a little bit more extra warmth, or a little bit more I don't know. It's you have to actually hear it and hear both of them to get a 100% an idea of what I'm trying to say. Now, what you do notice is that because the bass of the Dynaquattro is just that little extra more, let's say, I wouldn't say recessed, but that little extra more controlled, what then happens is that the mids to upper mids come through with a little bit extra more detail, with a little bit more extra cleanliness, which on the serial, again, this graph doesn't do it 100% justice. On the serial, it more times than less, it just is ever so slightly behind the Dynaquattro. But this is honestly, like I said before, this is me really nitpicking. This is me really trying to find faults, if you want to consider it that way. Both of them are phenomenal sounding IEMs. And you know, you have to appreciate you have to be able to really appreciate them for what they are capable of doing. Which were the two, as I said before, will probably appeal maybe to a slightly larger crowd of people. Perhaps the Dynaquattro will. And then in terms of up top, you know, how things are handled past the 8K, I would say the Dynaquattro edges out ever so slightly. Again, the serial, so soundstage, imaging, detail retrieval, just a little bit more again because of this extra energy here, the way that it's done over there. It's just in terms of timbre and tonality that the serial might be a little bit more appealing to me and to some of you guys. To others maybe not so, but it's look, these are very, very minor differences, guys. Trust me, these are truly minor differences. Compared here to the PENON Quattro, you can look, let me put it to you the other way around. If I compare the Quattro with the serial, you can see there's some similar DNA here in the mids, without a question. But the interesting thing is actually the serial, although very similar as well, again, in the way that it's done past 10K, because the serial doesn't have the amount of bass that the Quattro has. The serial, although having less energy in, you know, that past 10K, sounds more open and more detailed. The Quattro, by having this big monstrous bass here, which, you know, does bleed into the mids and does shut down a little bit vocals somewhat, it doesn't let you get the perception of how much detail it actually is capable of doing up top. And you know, when then you take the Quattro and you compare it with the Dynaquattro, it becomes even more noticeable what I'm saying, because then yes, here you do notice this big disparity in the mid bass. The mid bass of the PENON Quattro is more prominent, it's more there, but it's not as clean, it's not as incisive, it's not as detailed. Now, is one better than the other? No, it's like I said before, they are both tailored for two different crowds of people. So, you know, if rock is what you want, I would definitely say that the PENON Quattro is probably the better one, because of this energy that you have here, which will give kick drums that emphasis that people want or enjoy. But even if you want cleaner vocals, cleaner, more melodic, more musically correct, let's put it that way, then definitely the Quattro, the Dynaquattro, sorry, takes the one. And just quickly comparing here the PENON Quattro with the 7Hz 5, you could almost, I mean, I didn't mention this earlier, but I will do so now. I think these two are winners, and by the fact of them being so different but doing things at the same time so well. If somehow I'm able to kind of convey what I'm trying to say. One is, you know, is definitely the more warmer, more camouflaged kind of sound, but there's a certain magic about the PENON Quattro that once you let yourself just get a little bit adjusted to the sound, you actually enjoy. And then the other is you know, is definitely a V shape, where again the mids or kind of a little bit more second place. But there's once again a certain amount of magic which kind of captivates you, and it's interesting because although these two or wouldn't be my first choices when compared to the PENON, the serial, or the binary acoustics Dynaquattro. In my opinion, those two are better IEMs, or more coherent, more harmonious IEMs. These two still have a magic about them, which makes them very interesting. Obviously, the 7Hz 5, by having the price that it has, makes it one of those IEMs that I think would make sense to own, because of how different it is, but how well executed it has been done at the same time. So if you do have some extra cash and not wanting to promote sales or anything of the sort, I mean, I said earlier what I said. This is one of those IEMs that does make sense to own, if you do definitely want to have something that has been done in a different manner, but well done, well executed. And without a doubt, the 7Hz 5 is my favorite 7Hz IEM to date. But this is unquestionable. I would like to get my hands on an Aurora and listen to that and see what that's like. I'll see what I can do. But anyway, that's that. And as for the Dynaquattro, phenomenal IEM. Once again, phenomenal IEM. I just feel it's my thing. This and the serial definitely are part of my favorite IEMs that I have and own. Guys, as always, like and subscribe. If there's any questions, anything, please let me know, and I'll do my best to answer as quickly as possible. You take care now. Bye bye.